Malachi 3 verse 10 says, "Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." When God spoke through Malachi, his meaning was clear. The tithe was meant to fill his house so people could be cared for. That provision was never meant to pad a man's pocket, build his mansion, or polish his luxury car. It was meant to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and provide for the widow, the orphan, and the homeless. Yet today, many churches operate like businesses. Pastors live like kings while the poor sit outside unfed. This is not the storehouse God commanded. A church without the Spirit, without compassion, and without love for the least is not God's house. It is a dead building. In Israel, the tithe supported the Levites because they had no land, but it also cared for the poor. God built compassion into the tithe itself. Jesus confirmed this in Matthew 25. "Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me." When you feed the poor, you feed Christ. When you clothe the naked, you clothe Christ. When you neglect the least, you neglect Christ. But pulpits often twist Malachi 3 verse 10 into a slogan to build empires. "Sow into my ministry and reap your blessing." Yet the blessing was never about enriching a preacher. It was about filling God's house so no one went without. A pastor driving a Benz while the poor in his city starve is not representing Christ. That is theft. In Ezekiel 34, God declared he is against shepherds who feed themselves and not the flock. So where should we give? If the church is alive, Spirit-filled, preaching truth, and caring for the poor, give there. But if the church is dead, without spirit or compassion, then give where God's Spirit is moving. Give to the homeless, the widow, the orphan, the hungry and cold. That is fulfilling his word. When you place bread in the hand of the hungry, you bring meat into his house. When you give a coat to the cold, you prove God true. And the blessing comes not because you enriched a man, but because you obeyed God's heart. God said, "Prove me." He promised to open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing too great to contain. That blessing is not just money. It is provision, peace, protection, and joy. It follows a giver who has God's heart. When you give to the least, you touch heaven. When you serve the poor, you unlock the storehouse of heaven. The tithe and offering were never meant to fund luxury but to fill God's house with love. If the church is alive and Spirit-filled, give there. But if it is dead,